Welcome to the Time is Right podcast. Time is Ripe is a digital journal podcast of Ripe Creatives. Ripe Creatives is a ministry that leverages the arts for the purpose of missions here in Philadelphia and around our region. Time is Ripe is hosted by Ripe Creatives founder Scott Smith and features various guests from within the Ripe community and our extended family. Each episode focuses on a specific experience that our team hosted here in the city or an outside event where someone from our team was booked to perform. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Y'all might have lost your way, but I'm still out here living my purpose. Know that I'm the best to do it when I'm living the service.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to The Time is Right. My name is Scott Smith, and I'm your host here on The Time is Right. Here we do something super unique where we go back in time to talk about specific dates that connect with our Ripe Creatives community. A lot of times we're talking about events that we produced in the city, one of our Creatives Philly events, a Two Lines Philly event, maybe a Good Soil event, something like that. Every once in a while we're talking about gigs or events where one of us in our team got booked to go perform somewhere. And we just tell that story and how the booking happened and what happened at the thing and all the stuff. Today's going to be super fun because it's a booking kinda, but it's me. So I don't really talk about most of my gigs on this podcast, to be honest. Try to stay booked and busy as an artist, as a spoken word artist myself, but I rarely actually tell stories of like me going somewhere to perform. But today I'm making an exception because I just absolutely love this thing that I got to do. It was January 24th, 2025 was the date. And I got to be on this event called Open Heart Poetry. It was their 1-year anniversary show. To break this whole thing down, the real reason why we're doing this episode is because of who my guest is. I'm so excited to introduce him to all of you and have him introduce himself as well. Mr. Poetic Will, welcome to the podcast, my guy.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me, man. Blessed to be here and grateful, man.
Poetic Will, I literally only know you as Poetic Will. I do not know your government. I have no idea what your last name is. I think it's Will. I think your first name is Poetic. I'm pretty sure that is your actual name. It's funny in the poetry community. That's how we identify each other, is with our actual poet names. But Will, Poetic Will, founder of Open Heart Poetry, the curator behind the madness that we're going to talk about on today's episode, the guy who ran this January 24th, but also many shows before that. Will, you got to introduce yourself to our audience, right? Yes. So you probably don't know a lot of the people that are listening to today's episode, or maybe you do because you sent it to them. But introduce yourself like these people don't know who you are. Who are you, Poetic Will?
So I am Poetic Will, but my name, Scott doesn't know, is Willie Douglas.
Willie Douglas,
yes, sir. Born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. I live in Trenton, New Jersey now. It's not much to me, man. I'm just a follower of Jesus, a disciple, a girl dad, a proud girl dad, and just a person who loves God, honestly, and just is called according to his purpose.
That's amazing, man. How did we get connected? I think it was probably Two Lines, right?
Yes, I got booked for Two Lines sometime it was in 2024 when I got booked into
summer, like summer range
around that, something
maybe
like that.
Maybe spring. It was at Deke's Barbecue.
Yes, it was at Deke's.
I think I met you at the Deke's one that you were at more recently, because you were there with E, the Hope Dealer.
Yes,
and you guys came out from Jersey together, and I think they did the space where you performed by the pool tables.
Yep.
And then they never did that again.
Yeah.
That was really? A one and done.
Oh, wow.
They switched it to the other side of the room after that one. Because you have people trying to play pool during the poetry set.
I can see how that's
geez,
crazy.
Oh man, guys, this is ridiculous. But I know you met a lot of the people in Ripe before me. You had met Greg and AVG.
Yes.
How'd you get connected to those guys?
The first time I got connected to AVG, he actually hit me up because there was an event that he was featured at and he couldn't make it. So I guess he referred me and I didn't even know him. I didn't know him at all. I was I knew you know how you know someone in the poetry community, but you don't know them like that. So I guess he seen my work and wanted to refer me to them. So I took that on. I performed at that place. I think it's called Soul Solutions Ministries. If I hope I'm correct. So that's how I got connected with AVG. And who else I get connected with? Greg. I got connected with him just through him just booking me for 2 lines. Yeah, I didn't really know anything about them, honestly. So it was kind of out the blue.
Oh, wow. Okay, I guess I didn't realize that either. So, well, shout out to AVG doing AVG things. Getting booked, can't do the date, sends it to somebody else.
Yep.
That's definitely like a part of our culture with Right. At some point, AVG came out and featured at Open Heart.
Yes.
Maybe in January of last year.
Yes, he
like
featured
right
that.
as you were making the change.
Yes.
But let's talk about Open Heart overall. So this thing, January 24th, that was the 1-year anniversary show.
Correct.
Of the new version of Open Heart.
Yes.
If that's fair. So Open Heart has kind of had a big change about 12 months ago from the time of recording this episode, like from the anniversary show itself. But before that Open Heart was going on, you founded the whole thing. Like, how many years ago was that you started Open Heart? And then talk to us through like that transition to what it has become.
Yeah. So I founded Open Heart Poetry April of 2023. April 14th exactly. That was the day of my birthday. So on my 25th birthday, I started Open Heart Poetry. It was just a, kind of regular open mic that you go to. You kind of get a little bit of everything. Very much secular. I was in my walk with God, but I was still learning who God was, learning his character. And through that walk, I kind of realized that I wanted, my business to reflect myself, and who I am with God. So God kind of, and the thing was, the business was going well. Like, so shows were selling out. But it was just a tug on my heart saying, hey, I want to do this for God. I mean, I fought with it a little bit. I've received some prophetic words from some people kind of confirming what I've already knew to do. Mm-hmm. And I just shut everything down in November of 2023. I canceled the show. We were supposed to have a Christmas show. I canceled it. And I started the rebranding process. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I went to my pastor, Antonio Bellamy of Transformation Church. I texted him and I said, hey, I want to have a Christian open mic. Do I have your support? And he said, anything you need. And we started Open Heart Poetry, rebranded to Christian in January of 2024, and we haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know why I assumed it was even longer the other route. It was only 8 months.
Yeah.
Was a secular open mic.
Yeah.
And then changed into Christian. So just for folks here on our podcast that have listened to other episodes, like our creatives and our 2 lines events are these kind of what you used to do in the sense of like a third space model. Now ours is intentionally missional and all that kind of stuff. And we're really trying to do like evangelism and have half of our audience be non-Christian people, like intentionally building the model that way. But I think it's beautiful, like that there's space for both. Like there's space for third space kind of models that are doing things in more of a covert way. But also there's a value in spaces that are Christian events for Christian people to impact Christian people. Yes, other people come too and get impacted through that. But, naming like, hey, this is going to look, feel, sound this way through and through. And God can use that as well. I mean, even, on our end, we do the Good Soil events, our block party outreaches. Like, there's other events that we do that are Oracle's Poetry even, right? Like, that are overtly Christian events. So we kind of do both. But I think it's cool that you kind of went from one to the other. Yeah. And, it just felt like the Lord was the one doing it. And I think that that's always the heartbeat is what is God calling you to do? Yeah. Right? Be obedient to what the Lord has given you to carry, because that's the most important thing, right? Not the trends, not the market, not the, I saw so-and-so do this way, so then we can do it this way. Like, be obedient to the Lord.
Absolutely.
One of the things I tell people is I'm like sick and tired of watching people try to replicate in the flesh what God did in the spirit, right? Like there's so many times where people are like, man, Maverick City did this way, so we're going to take the model and create a new version of it. It's like, fam, Maverick City was the Lord's favor.
Exactly.
Early, right? And in some ways, maybe, they've moved and done things differently over the last few years than maybe how they started. And shout out to Mav, that's fine. But what God was doing, like you couldn't manufacture
you can't replicate it.
Right? Because God did that. But a lot of people do that. They say, oh man, I see this model over here. Let me take this. It's like, nah, fam, what is God calling you to do? Be obedient to what the Lord has called you to do. And I think you made the right decision because it was God speaking to you. What were kind of some of those words that were, you know, super convicting for you to be like, I know I need to do this? Like, what caused that change?
Well, it was a friend of mine hit me up on Instagram and they sent me a screenshot of a conversation with them and another person. And the conversation, the guy said, I thought it was a video that we posted, and it was a particular lady up there doing an rather a vulgar poem. And the screenshot, I sent it to my friend and said, I thought Will was supposed to be a Christian. And it completely blew my mind. I was like, well, I'm not the one doing the poem, but I was like, wait a minute, but this is my business. And I asked myself, is this glorifying God? And the answer was strictly no. And you know, I'm a poet's poet, so I support all forms of poetry, you know, because be creative in your own way. But when it comes to the business that God has given me and the vision that He has given me, He strictly wanted me to do it for His glory. So that definitely convicted me for sure. And I was like, I had to look at myself in the mirror. I was like, okay, I may not do poetry like this, but if I don't, why would I have someone else get on this stage and do that type of poetry? It's not glorifying God at all. So I had to look at myself in the mirror on that one.
Wow. That's a story right there. That'll slap you upside the head, huh?
Yeah.
No, that's good, man. I think it's like I said, it's like those intentions and hearing the Lord's voice and allowing Him to speak to you about it. You know, it's not to say that the way you're doing it is the only way to give honor and glory to God, but it's like your particular story is how God's speaking to you.
Yes.
And so being obedient to trust Him. And honestly, even if you went through a Gideon type situation where, okay, I'm trusting God, I'm going to do it this way because I feel like this is what He's telling me to do. We're going overtly Christian open mic, and it shrunk. That wouldn't make the obedience any less valuable.
It wouldn't.
Right? Now the opposite happened.
Right.
So you make the rebrand in January 2024 to being an overtly Christian open mic. I think AVG was on that January show.
He sure was.
I think he was. Shout out to AVG. From January till May, you guys are kind of building.
Correct.
I know in May of 2024, that was when myself, Greg, AVG, Misspoken Poet, Sergine, we're all in Houston, Texas. We start the conversation around oracles. We start planning this Oracles Christian spoken word showcase event in Philly because of feeling like there's a gap for Christian poetry in our region, but even nationally. Things like Rhetoric, you know, P4CM, the Poets in Autumn Tour, True Voices, you know, even stuff like Legacy and Flavor Fest back in the day used to have spaces for spoken word poetry. A lot of these things have either stopped creating space for poetry or have ceased to exist or went on a hiatus. And I am the most reluctant to do things. You can ask Jarrett and everybody else in our community. I'm very much like, don't burn people out. Don't overdo it. Don't oversaturate. But everybody was like, Scott, you got to create a space for Christian poetry because it doesn't exist. And I was like, okay. So we start planning oracles. I'm telling you, Will, if I had known what open heart poetry was going to become for our region, I probably never would have done oracles, honestly. Probably never would have planned it, never would have executed it because I didn't know, right, what it was going to become. I want to say it was in September that I came to the first one that I came to. And I was like, what is this? First of all, you get there. It was an open mic. It was a list. And there had to be 50 people outside. By the time we got there, and we got there early. We got there well before doors opened. There was already 50 people in line. I was like, what is going on? Who are all these people? Why is Trenton lit? Like, I never thought Trent was lit.
That's a real question.
You know? Like, I've done shows in Trenton, like back with Charnette, the twins. I don't know if you know them, Phelps twins, like amazing spoken word artists from Trenton. Did shows in Trenton. I think Leah James, if you know Leah James, like back in the day, she was doing some stuff in Trenton. She did one like in a boxing gym at some point. And no offense to any of those other things, but they were not what this was. Like I've never seen Trenton have this many people standing in line outside. I don't think there's this many people that live in Trenton. I don't think this many people live in Trenton. There were so many people in line. Everybody was turned up. Everybody was excited to get in. You get in, people are signing up for the open mic list. There's vendors. There's a band that's going to be late because bands are late.
Yeah.
Right? There's a host. There's the speakers, all this stuff. I was blown away, man. Like that September event, walking in, I did not know what to expect because my only context for it was AVG's feature in January. It was like, oh, this is like a run-of-the-mill Christian open mic space. It's great. It's wonderful. But you were like in a cafe at the time. Now you're in Artworks, in Trenton, like a big space. And there had to be 200 people there in September.
Yeah. It was about 150.
150?
About 150. Yeah, it was 150.
Okay. It felt packed.
It was packed, though.
It was like wall to wall, elbow to elbow, people on top of each other. A lot of folks. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a space for Christian poetry. But we had already released the flyers, put out all the word about oracles. I was like, I mean, we got to do oracles. But I was like, we probably didn't need to do oracles because Open Heart's about to take over. And that's exactly what's happened. Like from September, October, November, December, or October, November, I guess you did a couple more shows.
September, we did September, and then we did November. So we just did, after September was November.
So there's no October. November show goes super well. You skip December because of Christmas. You come back into January and you decide to scrap the open mic, per se, and change the entire model. Now I believe at the time you were just doing this for the anniversary, right?
Correct.
You thought you were going to do showcase, auditions, features, basically on a showcase for the anniversary, and then go back to an open mic.
Yes.
But talk to me about that decision to do the anniversary that way. Like, what was kind of going on there?
Well, I think for the anniversary, God wanted this thing to, first off, all glory to God for giving us 365 days around the sun for this thing to have the 1 year anniversary.
Amen.
Right. And, for this one, I know he wanted me to curate an atmosphere that was conducive for the Holy Spirit. Obviously, the open mic list, you don't know who's going to come on this list, right? And all amazing people, all amazing performers. But I think God wanted me to have just a little bit more, I don't want to say the word control. Help me out with the word.
Influence.
That's a great word. I've been hearing that a lot this week. He just wanted me to have a little bit more influence on who gets on this stage for this 1 year anniversary, to give him glory. We did the auditions. The thing is, it wasn't even going to be auditions at first.
Okay.
So
you were just going to pick 10 people that you wanted on it?
No, it wasn't going to be that.
Okay.
So God just worked in a crazy way. So what we did was we created a form that people signed up, and we were going to select at random.
Oh, right? Yeah, I remember this. Lottery style.
Yeah, lottery style. That's what we were going to do.
What Creators Philly, yep.
We were going to do a lottery style, and immediately the Lord shut it down. He said no. And I was like, what? And that's when I was like, okay, so how do we still give these people that signed this form a chance? It was like auditions. And we did auditions. We held maybe a little under or over 100 auditions in a span of 2 days.
Yep.
Virtually and in person. And,
this was early January.
Yes.
Like January 7th, 8th kind of thing.
First
something
week.
In that.
Yeah.
And I saw the flyer for the auditions.
Yeah.
And I, to be transparent, like, I was like, we got oracles coming up in March. I got to promote this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go audition for this thing.
That's real.
Because I was like, listen, we got to show. I'm taking a big risk on this one. We got to get the word out. And honestly, September was amazing.
Yeah.
And I was super blessed by it. I went with Sergine and Greg to the September one.
September that was my favorite show in 2024.
It was such a good
September
show.
One. It was amazing.
Yeah, like got really connected with Anina that night.
Yeah.
Love her. She's been kind of like a baby sis ever since. And just the whole night was like, I saw Ambition the Poet, Ambition Harper. Like I hadn't seen him in years. Ambition and I used to run around together quite a bit. When he was going as like the foster child poet in the VIP kind of circuit. He was helping Lou run Voices in Power New Jersey for a time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like he's super involved with different things over the years. So like seeing him there, I was like, oh my gosh, Jersey's just a different place. Sometimes, you just don't know who you're going to see out here. And so it was like very memorable. So whenever I saw the auditions, come up, it was like, okay, I do need to promote Oracles, but I also like really value what you guys are doing. And I am of the philosophy, again, Jarrett, who taught my production, shout out to him, he can attest to this. I'm very much a like, don't reinvent the wheel guy. Like I would rather produce less and partner more personally.
Right.
Because like there's only so much capacity in your hands.
That's right.
And your time and your life. So when you see other people with a hunger, like shoot, man, I would much rather come alongside somebody, offer advice, wisdom, resource, connection, network, like take everything I have and do it because you're doing the work. And if I can make something 1% better by being a part of it, then that's what I'd love to do, you know? So I saw the audition thing, and it was funny being like in my season of life, because I've been doing poetry for a very long time now, like I'm old, and looking at an audition, and I think there's a natural thing that can happen in one's flesh where you're like, man, I ain't auditioning for nothing.
Absolutely.
Right? But it was like, man, that's not the Lord.
Right.
Right? Jesus submitted himself to John to be baptized. This is the Messiah, Mashiach, Son of God. Like, willingly submitted himself to be put on display so that people could say, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. And so I was just like, it was like a very split second for me.
It happens.
But I was like, I need to repent of that because that's pride. That's not the Lord. Like the Lord didn't say, oh, you don't have to audition. Like Jesus basically did an audition, for his ministry. Like he went through the 40 days, 40 nights. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it kind of like checked me really quickly. And then I signed up and came out for the in-person one. Also came out because of Anina. I probably wouldn't have without her. She was really encouraging me like, oh, you can audition. You got to audition. Open heart. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Came out. Was blown away to find out you had 100 people audition.
Yeah.
100 people, Will.
A lot.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot. It was hard. Choosing 10 people out of 100, super hard.
Yeah. I was like, how in the world did you pick these people? Like, how do you find the 10 out of 100? What was that whole process look like?
It was tough because I like to tell people like, and this is very true. It's not about talent. It's not about like who's better than who. It's nothing like that. It's just like, honestly, I lean on the Lord so much for my poetry. I had to lean on him even more in the decision making when it came to auditions. Like, and there's a lot of people that I want to say yes to. Cause like, I'm not gonna lie, like I had a separate list of yeses and nos. I've probably had like 60 yeses. And I'm like, out of these 60, I got picked 10. Yeah. It was very hard. EP, the Hope Dealer, we did that process together. And it was just about trying to curate the show top to bottom. Like everybody that hits that stage, is just one giving glory to God, but it was also just like boom, 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 boom. Like you're not gonna miss a beat.
Yeah. No misses.
No misses. So it's hard, and it's I'm not gonna lie, it's probably gonna continue to be hard as we do this thing throughout the year. But this is the way the Lord wants it, so I know He's gonna give me the grace to do it. Mm-hmm. So that's all.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible, and I know. So by God's grace, guys, I made the list, right? So I auditioned. I became one of the 10 because the Lord spoke to Will and was like, "This guy needs some grace. Give it to him." But so I get to be a part of the lineup for January 24th, and I think one of the things you did that I really appreciated was what we're doing with Oracles, where we like created a group chat,
yes, and
started to have like kind of internal group communication.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you got to do some separate individual communication for questions, things like that. But like you put us on Zoom together.
Yeah.
And just like, hey, this is what's going on with the show. Here's what the plan is. It's going to be at this place called the War Memorial in this particular theater. It's going to be great. Here's the heartbeat of it. Here's the lineup. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of like poets to music to worship to poets to music to worship. Like it had some dimension to it, which is the same way we do our shows. For like Creatives Philly and our open mic space, like cross genre. Having like that roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
and finding out when we're all going to go, all that kind of stuff, right? Hey, how do you have a vendor table? What's this going to look like? We're all excited, following each other on Instagram, meeting new people. I knew about half the lineup. Like I knew T Chaos.
Yeah.
I think the T's actually silent.
Yeah, it messes me up every time.
I call him T Chaos because it's in his name. I mean, change your name if you don't want me to say T Chaos. It's your fault. Also, the young kid, Sinclair.
Yeah, Asan.
Asan, I believe. Asan, adorable little dude, super talented.
Absolutely.
Seeing his name on it, that brought me like a lot of joy because he's been in my DMs all the time, sending me like every single thing he's doing. Super excited. Dise is a good friend. He actually did, a concert with Sarai Nicole with us. So I'm like, okay, glowing poet.
Yeah.
I'm like seeing a lot of these people and I'm like, oh, snap. Like I know a lot of these people, but the worship people, I did not know none of it. Like I didn't know any of that.
Right.
And I assumed at the time that you put us in the group chat that it was like mostly poets until the night of the event. Then I realized what you were doing, that there was like 3 or 4 different worship artists that were just going to recenter. Yes. And it was almost a worship night with a little bit of poetry.
Yeah, that's what it seemed.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what happened. But before we get into the intricacy of the lineup and, shout out some people that killed it, all that kind of stuff. The day of the event, January 24th, that morning, something happened.
Yep.
We're all looking forward to the show. We're all excited. Going to the War Memorial in Trenton. Let's go. Right? I got my booth ready for the Ripe Creatives table. All my little flyers for oracles. We're going to promote the show. And I forget exactly what happened, but I think it was a voice memo.
Yes.
Hey, guys. It was a text. Hey, guys, listen to this voice memo that I'm about to send. And then your voice gets on telling us what, Will? What was the news Saturday, January 24th morning?
Man, you're going to have to keep up with me because it was a lot. So that morning, me and my girlfriend, we get up. We have a day ahead of us just to get ready, prepare for the show. I believe we were on our way to get her nails done. She's getting her nails done. I get a call from the building manager at War Memorial. He says, hey, I have some bad news. He said, we had a pipe burst, a gas leak. We had a gas leak. PSCG is here fixing it. Worst case scenario, they shut the building down. He's like, I'll give you a call back. I'm like, okay. So I'm worried. My girlfriend is crazy.
What time is this?
It was probably around 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
It was definitely before 12. This
is less than 12 hours before doors open.
Yeah, I get that call. I'm nervous. My girlfriend is crazy. She's like, oh, she has no worry in the world. Like, she's like, everything's gonna work itself out. I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you not see this call I just got? But I was like, all right, let's pray. Prayed. I got a call back about an hour later from the building manager. He said, hey, they fixed the pipe. We're good to go. I said, great. Right? So we're going through our day. Probably another hour goes by. He calls me again. He says, yeah, bad news. They fixed the first pipe, but when they fixed it, another pipe burst. They're shutting the building down. And I was like,
oh my gosh. I wasn't even privy to this. Yeah, there was a back and forth.
Yeah. And I was like, is there anybody I could talk to? He said, no, there's not. They kicked me out the building. No one's allowed in the building until Monday. And I was like, he was like, we can send you a refund, all this other stuff.
He said, I'm going to need that refund.
No, yes. But I was just like, all right. So I sat there and I'm just like, what? I was like, this show is going to go on. There's still things that me and my girlfriend had to do throughout the day to get prepared for the show. And the Lord simply said, he said, keep moving like you're going to have this show. So we kept moving. I called my pastor. My pastor is like my emergency contact when something happens. So I called him. I said, hey, I told him what happened with War Memorial. I said, I need a venue that's going to hold 300 plus people. He said, I got you. I'm going to make some calls. And I said, the first place that popped up in my head was Central, which is my church's mother's church. Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, what do you think about Central Church? And he said, I don't know. He said, there's a lot of red tape. He said, this is very one last minute, and they're very organized, but I'll call and see what I can do. So I'm in a group chat with him and my other business partner of mine, and they're trying to figure things out. I'm crying throughout the day because I'm stressed. My girlfriend's praying a storm up. And the pastor of Central Church gave me a call. He said, hey, I hear what's happening. I'm willing to help. I just have to call some guys to make sure things are in order. He said I have to call my sound guy, my stage and lighting guy, and I have to have a maintenance guy there. He said, if I can get those 3 there, you are set to go. So I was like, all right. So now I'm like, okay, we're waiting for him to get in touch with these guys. He said, hey, I just can't get in touch with my sound guy. So he was like, I don't think we can do this. So this was actually after the fact of when I told y'all about the location, when I told you the location switch. Wow. Because he called me the first time, say, hey, it's a go. Just let me get in contact with them. So I kind of gave you guys the prematurely.
Yeah, you told us. That's whenever you sent the voice memo.
Yeah.
And I know it had to be the afternoon.
Yes.
By the time we got that information.
I gave you guys the information a little prematurely.
Yeah.
But with faith.
Right.
And then he called me and said, yeah, I can't get in touch with the sound guy. I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I'm sorry. So now I'm sitting there. I was like, I put out a new flyer with a new address. I told you guys I'm sitting there. I'm in my car in front of her house, just like, what is going on? And he called me back 5 minutes later. And he said, yeah, so my sound guy, he called me back. He said, you're good. I was like, why y'all keep playing with me today, bro? Yeah. And but he gave the yes. That was the definite yes, and we ended up at Central Church that night after all the chaos that happened that day. Also, I don't want to leave this out. I have to leave this out because I tell my girlfriend all the time. We ran into a lady at the mall that day before we got the yes from the pastor. And I tell her all the time I think that was an angel from the Lord. We walked by this lady at the mall, and I didn't see her. And she had a kiosk. And she said, hey, guys, she called us up. She said, hey, I want you guys to come check out my stuff. I'm new in the mall. So we went over there, and I'm looking at the stuff. My mind is somewhere else. But we're looking, I see cross necklaces and her business sign. This is a faith-based business. And we told her what was going on, and she pulled out holy oil and she prayed for us. Wow. And she prophetically said, tonight is going to be a showdown. That's what she said. So that was that. And then after the show, weeks after the show, we went by the mall. She wasn't there. Yeah. Like the kiosk was not there. Yeah. I was like, yo, that lady doesn't work here. Like that lady was sent from the Lord. I'm telling you.
Yeah. He sent you a messenger.
Yeah, for sure.
The faith-based business part of it too. Yeah. It's so on the nose, right?
Yeah.
Man, it was a crazy thing as an outsider that does curate a decent amount of events, right? To watch this whole thing unfold. I was like, I mean, you saw me. I was doing haikus against the devil in the chat.
Yep.
Like I was dropping haikus, because I was just like, yo, this is like totally the enemy.
Absolutely.
Just trying to thwart what God has already like declared is going to be amazing tonight. Like it just gave me so much more confidence that God's hand was on the event and that you were going to see absolute breakthrough happen.
Absolutely.
And everybody kill it. And God get the glory because this was happening.
Yes.
I was like, there's no way that this night is not going to be amazing. Now, it could have been a like reschedule, postpone, and then God could have gotten glory through whatever the future date would have been. But you felt so certain, like, no, this is happening tonight. Yeah. You're speaking faith to even us. I didn't even know that. Yeah. You didn't have the details locked in when you told us because you seemed pretty confident. So it happens. I remember, I came a little bit early, try to help set up. Everybody, I guess, came early considering start time.
Yes.
Because, you're talking about a massive production.
Yes.
Switching locations on the fly within hours of doors open. Mm-hmm. So it's always going to be like a late start time.
Yeah.
But I get there, beautiful space, man.
Yes.
And I'm sure War Memorial would have been amazing and all that kind of stuff. But there was just something so incredibly, like, excellent about that building.
Absolutely.
Even the people that were like, you could tell were a little bit annoyed about the situation because they had an event the next morning and they were like, well, nobody touch our stuff. But even like talking to them, you could feel the like break down in them as I was explaining what Open Heart does and who it's for and how many young people come. They're like, oh, it's for the young people. Okay. You know, like you could just tell like, okay, God's like favors on this thing. The space is gorgeous.
Amazing.
It's so beautiful. Like there's like a flat area that seats probably about 150 and then a tiered kind of almost like a movie theater style.
Yes.
Like where the seats go up in the back half of the room, like another 150 seats, about 300.
It seats more than that.
It doesn't seat more.
It seats 430.
430.
Yes.
Okay. Beautiful stage, lights. I don't know. Would you say it would have been better there than War Memorial from a production standpoint?
From a production standpoint, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because it felt really, really nice.
It felt amazing in there. I've been in there one time, because that's my mother's church. So I've been there one time. But I didn't get to sit and like take it all in, just like, whoa, like this is beautiful. So from a production standpoint, absolutely way better.
Yeah, and like the band getting there, you had dedicated sound guy.
Yes.
You didn't have to bring anything in, right? No speakers, no extra this, that, and the third. Like everything was there. So even though it was like late and running behind, it still was efficient.
Absolutely.
To be able to get set up to go. Lights are up. The event eventually gets rolling. So many people came.
Yes.
I think you guys sold in like the 250 range of tickets, but there had to be a solid 300 people in the building.
I believe we sold 300. Right?
We sold 300.
We sold 300. But people bought tickets at the door as well. So we hit closer to 350.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
For Christian poetry, yes, worship, music as well, but in the name, open heart poetry. Christian poetry event, 350 people, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure somebody down in Texas is going to hear that and be like, well, that's where we have a youth group for middle school, you know? But you got to understand the context. This is the greater Northeast, right? This is Philly, Trenton, Jersey, New York, Boston. Our markets are extremely hard.
Very saturated.
And it's not only very saturated for events, but also like not a super warm towards Christian faith
for sure
kind of spaces, you know? And to pull that many people, you got to pull people from different churches.
Yes.
And a lot of times churches don't always play nice.
Right.
And so you're pulling across a bunch of different denominational lines, bunch of different cultural lines. I mean, you're even pulling across state lines.
Yes.
Because you got people coming down from New York. You got people coming up from Maryland, D.C., Baltimore. You got people coming from Delaware, Philly, even west of Philly, and then obviously Jersey itself. Yeah. Like you're probably pulling 5 or 6 different states of people all to this thing, Open Heart. I know personally I was blown away. Like walking in, I was like, why are we doing oracles? That was my first thought. Not like from a jealousy standpoint at all, but just from God's doing this. Like that gap that we felt in May of last year when we were in Houston and we were praying and being like, man, there's nothing really for Christian poetry anymore. Like what happened, Lord? And seeing Open Heart is like, oh yeah, there is something. God is doing something here. And we don't have to put the burden on our back to do everything. You know, now we're still doing oracles. I mean, we already promoted the thing. People are coming. It's a great lineup. It's going to be a great event. Or it was a great event if this already, comes out after that. But like we're doing oracles, but it's like a once a year kind of max kind of vision for that. But no matter what, like there is a space. Yeah. Like God is answering the prayer with or without oracles in that sense. And that's what I felt going into that night, seeing all the people there. I had a unique experience because I interacted with almost everybody who came in the room. Wow. Because I was passing out flyers. So I like walked around and actually like touched base with people. And it was amazing because there was a lot of folks there that were excited to be there because they love you. There's a lot of people that were there because they've been to a bunch of Open Hearts before. There was a lot of people there at that anniversary that did not know you, did not know this event, but got brought. Like somebody brought them. Yeah. They didn't have any idea what they were walking into, and they came. And maybe wouldn't even have came to the church. They would have went to the War Memorial.
Yep.
But then this switch up happens. Now they're in church, and that thing becomes church
Yeah.
to the nth degree. Let's talk about the actual lineup, bro, because
Yes.
this thing was insane.
It's crazy, man.
Talk to me about it.
Man, the lineup from top to bottom. Who do we have? Started us off, Colin G. Smith, ring announcer. When
That was crazy.
When he auditioned, the Lord immediately just said yes, like to start the show off. As and then when he auditioned, he did the piece that he did on stage. The Jesus versus Lucifer piece, and I said that's that. First off, that was the day. For one, that was the day of January 24th, just Jesus fighting off the enemy's plans for the day. So I said, yo, you have to start the show off.
Yeah, so like for the audience, because if you weren't there, this wouldn't make sense. But it's like in this corner,
Yeah,
weighing in it, in this corner, it's basically Jesus
Yeah.
versus the devil.
yeah,
And it was phenomenal.
Yes.
Like it was phenomenally performed.
absolutely.
Like it felt like the beginning of a fight,
Yes,
which was so indicative of the entire situation of the day, like you're saying. But yeah, Colin, shout out to that dude.
shout out him, man.
He killed that thing.
Shout out to who follow him, Shakur and his worship team. So people don't know this, and now you do. Shakur and his worship team will be the worship team for 2025 and for Open Heart Poetry. I asked him about that back in November. He gave me the yes. So 2025, they're the worship team. So he's phenomenal. He's from Newark, just like me, Newark, New Jersey. We connected a while ago. He's actually been to 2 Open Heart Poetries in 2024. And I just felt like the Lord is going to do something big with him. And it's going to be at Open Heart Poetry. So shout out him.
It was amazing. I know I was cracking up because I think it was like poets were given maybe 10 minutes or something like that. Worship teams were supposed to get 15. Yeah. Shakur was up there for like
30
45
minutes. He was up there for 30 minutes. And I was like,
dude, there's no way it was 30. It was like 45. He was going in.
He was.
He was like, we are going to break every chain
Yeah.
that is possible to be broken. I remember looking at the time because I mean you start late.
Yeah,
shout out to y'all.
We start at 9.
I'm too old for this, but praise be to God for starting at doors open at 8. You guys don't start the show till 9. We did not start at 9. I don't think.
No, we started at 9
we
on
did.
the dot.
We did start at 9.
We started at 9 on the dot.
You're right. We did. Which was incredible because sound checks were still going up until after doors had opened because of the late changes. But starts at 9, but by the end of the second act, it was like 9. It was like 9:50.
Yeah, it was wild.
And I was like, "Oh, we're gonna be
here for a while."
Who was after that? Was that whenever I came up? Or
after later, that was T Chaos, I believe.
T Chaos,
amazing.
Killed it.
Brought out the Spider-Man mask.
He did bring out the Spider-Man mask.
Okay, different. You next. Amazing set. Everyone asked me, was like, yo, what's his name? I said, that's Scott. Like a few people asked me about you. Cause it was just, I don't know what they expected from you, but when you got on stage, they was like, yo, who is that? Man.
Appreciate that, man. I had fun with it. I did not know what I was going to do until like I got there.
Okay. Well, sometimes that happens with poets.
Yeah. Cause I knew that I wanted to do, like, I wanted to honor the time limits, right? For one, as best I could. And then I kind of was like saying, hey, I think I could do these 2, but I might be like an extra minute and a half. Yeah. Is that okay? And you were like, yeah, that's fine. After the worship team went like 35 minutes over, I was like, I'm going to take this minute. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. But just kind of was thinking like, if I'd been in a different position in the night, I'd probably do different pieces, but it felt early. And it felt like, man, these people just need something to warm them up, something to get them like thinking, something to kind of woo
absolutely
the crowd and do something like that had some depth to it, but more was just like, oh, wow, like we're here. Yeah. This is an amazing night. And so I ended up rolling with State of Mind, which is like a really fun poem where you do the whole poem one way and then you run it back and you realize, oh, that's what was happening the whole time, was like this kind of rewritten thing into another piece that I probably could have scrapped, but I just did it as like a challenge piece called Rain. It's like a minute and a half. it just challenges the church to stand up,
Yeah.
And take their place. And it was fun, man. I didn't feel like it was me. I just like I was there, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like I just felt like the
I get
Holy
it.
Spirit kind of, took over, kind of out of body, just watching myself do the thing that God's gifted and blessed me to do.
Absolutely.
But he got the glory for it,
Yes.
and I felt people really connected with it, and it was a blessing. After me, we went back into music, right? Back into worship stuff.
Yeah. So I was very strategic on how I set it up. I kind of wanted to start us off with a boom, bring us down a little bit, bring us back up. I wanted to like give you a roller coaster throughout the night. So after you, we went, I believe it was D-Say, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, D-Say was right after
It was
me?
D-Say.
Shout out to D-Say.
And I knew D-Say would bring that calmness to the crowd, which was very good.
He's so
amazing.
good.
He's amazing.
He's a good poet as well.
Yes.
Like, he's a very
Yes.
strong spoken word artist. But I'm glad he did his music stuff.
I didn't know he was a musician until he auditioned. I always thought he was a poet.
He's both.
Yeah.
He's a very strong poet, but his vocal chops,
Yes.
he's disgusting, man.
Yeah,
like
he's
he's
amazing.
very, very talented. We've interacted with him quite a bit actually from our Ripe community because of a bunch of different overlapping things. So impressed with him.
Yes.
And just like really humble,
For sure.
like very humble, very sincere, very meek, in the way that he carries himself, like very unassuming. You would never know he's as talented as he is.
Yeah.
Just talking to him, because he doesn't have that aura on him of like, I'm the stuff, you should know
Yeah.
who I am. I love DJ, and he did a great job. People
Amazing.
loved his set.
Amazing job. After him was another worship singer, Heather. Heather.
She went in.
She went in she brought us right back up. We were supposed to do an intermission after her. That didn't happen. For one, the timing.
Yeah.
And
Heather said, I'll take your 45 minutes and I'll raise you 50.
So, the crowd didn't want an intermission.
Yeah.
I was like, you want it? It was like, no, keep going. I said, thank you, because we don't got the time for it anyway.
Yep.
So after Heather, Asan, amazing.
Kid.
Amazing 17-year-old.
He did 4 poems. I'll tease it. He did great.
He did great. And I'm really proud of him, because he told me this was I think it was one of his first features, since he started doing poetry. He said, I believe he said he did his first poem, at Open Heart Poetry in May.
Okay.
So it was a full circle moment for him to come for the 1-year anniversary.
Dude, he came
amazing.
dressed up.
Oh yes. Yeah. He came for church.
He came really, he had the necklace on, the turtleneck, little jaggy jacket, the shoes. I was like, look at this little kid. Look at him, all dressed up. He trying to look 30. Look at you.
Yeah.
He's such an adorable kid.
He's amazing.
And such a good writer.
For sure.
Really unique. And it's so cool to see a young person, because we have a story similar to this within our Ripe community of like young artists, okay, looking one way, but then because they're young and kind of impressionable,
Yes.
when they see, for Jesus art, and it connects with them, and they start to make sense of that faith themselves, they start to write different.
Absolutely.
And his content has changed a lot
Yes.
since May of last year.
For sure.
Like where you can see the influence that's happening. And I'm sure like God's still working on him, and there's going to be moments of, really understanding the gospel more clearly for himself, understanding what it means to surrender, give his life to Jesus, like fully in different ways over time. That's going to be unveiled to him. But you can tell just the influence that's, that you've had on him, honestly, that other people like yourself have had on him over the last year, to where his content
Yes.
is very different than it was.
Very different.
You know what I mean?
And sometimes when we think our content changes, we think our writing kind of slows down, but that's not always the case. His writing's got a lot better, and it's all for Jesus. So that's the amazing part of it.
Yeah, it was super cool to like watch that happen, and he killed it. Yeah. Who was after Asan?
After Asan, I believe it was Glow. I believe it was A Glowing Poet.
A Glowing Poet.
Yes, I believe it was her. Beast. She speaks for herself, man. She's amazing. I knew she was going to bring a calm to the crowd as well, but still woo the crowd as well. So she's amazing. After her was a poet that I wasn't familiar with until she auditioned, Kay Speaks. Carlisha. Her real name is Carlisha. Amazing poet. Really makes you think about when she really makes you think with her piece. It made me think. Her whole set just made me think.
Yeah, shout out to Carlisha and A Glowing Poet. Both of them are amazing. I've known of A Glowing Poet for a while because her and Sergine are tight.
Yes.
They've done some co-features together, different places. It's always a blessing to hear A Glowing Poet. She's just going to be like extremely direct.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, she's going to share a message with an audience.
Yes.
She's very like one of those on assignment kind of people. Mm-hmm. She knows what she's there to do. She knows she can really do it. She's going to do a great job. But yeah, Kay Speaks too, like amazing. Both of them absolutely killed it. They kind of felt like a tag team.
Yes, I was very strategic. I was like, them two together, because they very similar poets. So I thought they complemented each other very well going back to back. After Kay Speaks was, I think we had a saxophonist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's right.
Saxophonist, what was it? Cordell.
Yeah.
He did, he performed one time at Open Heart Poetry in 2024. Definitely gave a different feel to the night, as a saxophonist. The only person out of everybody, who performed that did not use their voice but used the instrument. It was very unique from him, and I liked it.
I actually did not get a chance to see his set because I was in the lobby.
Yes.
With a homie of mine that I hadn't seen in a minute. That was actually one of the main reasons why I'm doing spoken word in Philadelphia to this day.
Oh wow!
Because I was here writing, performing, and running into like a lot of challenges with that as a Christian white poet in Philly. Contextually, right? Like I have a lot that I had to overcome.
Yeah. In
some different spaces. I mean, the hospitality in Philly is actually really, really great when you get that in and respect with people. But as an outsider coming in, it was hard. And I was ready to give up. Wow. Like I got cussed out one night at an event, and because I did a piece about Jesus, and it was like, don't ever bring that, this, that, and the third mess here ever again. And it was crazy because that place ended up shutting down the next day after that all happened. But I was ready to throw in the towel. And that guy, Anthony Washington, Loved a Poet, like in the middle of me basically thinking I'm going to give up this whole thing, was like, hey, I got something for you. And that was whenever True Voices Philly started.
Okay.
It was like that moment was like, he unveiled the plan to the bunch of us. There's like a dozen of us poets from Philly. And then we became a team that ran around together for a few years and traveled up and down, all over the place doing Christian poetry together. But he was there, and I hadn't seen him in a while.
Wow.
And so I was actually out in the lobby connecting with him. And I bring that up to say, I'm sorry, Cordell, I missed your set. But that was like, if he found out about this.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, everybody knows about this open heart thing. Whether they can make it every month or not, everybody knows it's happening. Because the thing is kind of popped off and went viral in a regional kind of way that everybody knows about this thing. And I know I appreciated that moment basically as much as myself performing, getting a chance to promote oracles, seeing even any of the other artists perform, like getting a chance to see an old friend, connect about life, share moments with each other that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Like that's a part of what makes Open Heart so beautiful is the connection, the relationship, the networking aspect of it. So yeah, like even though I missed his set, like I still had another valuable moment in the other room during it. Who was after Cordell? Is that going into the final worship?
Yeah,
set?
final worship. Dana Paul. So it was wild. I didn't even know she sang. So my girlfriend, she, her business, she does Trenton Christian Fashion Week. So she's a co-owner of that. And they do a fashion show every year, once a year, annually. And, she was a model there. she came to audition, and I was like, whoa, I did not know this girl can sing like this. So yeah, she ended us out in worship.
Incredible. She was absolutely amazing. All of the worship moments, I mean, everything. The instrumentalists, the singers, the poets, the worship, everybody was like a 10 out of 10. There were no misses all night. I remember coming out of that worship moment, you guys had a few moments on stage that were super sincere as well.
Yeah.
At one point, you got an award for distinguished outreach and evangelism type stuff for what you're doing with Open Heart. Another point, the Hope Dealer gets on stage, shares a little bit of his own story and what he was going through.
Yes.
Talking about kind of backing up a little bit from Open Heart as he gets right in some senses. But just honoring you and honoring your friendship. And they brought you up on stage and just kind of shared of how faithful you've been. And dude, I've been on the other side of this couch a couple times where somebody's saying this to me and I don't know how to take a compliment. So I'm weird and awkward.
Yeah.
So I get that this might be uncomfortable, but you do need to hear it, man. Like God is using you, regardless of the pretense in the past and whatever ways, your story led you to this place in this season, because I don't know anything about your backstory at all. But I know you probably been through some stuff, and I know you probably made some mistakes along the way, right? But to see you now, it's a surrendered life, man.
Yes.
That's where you're at, is in a space where you're like, okay, God, I give this to you, and whatever you want with it, whatever comes with that, whatever fruit that brings, whatever trial that brings, I'm in it. And it's clearly evident that God's hand is on you.
Absolutely.
He's on Open Heart. He's on the movement. And people's lives are being impacted by this thing. People aren't just coming for a good time. People are coming and leaving transformed.
Yeah.
And I can say, even from an artist perspective, it's really special. I'm sure I probably won't audition again, for a while, but I know every other poet and write poetry is going to audition. Wow. I know all of them. I've been talking to all of them hey, this needs to be a priority for you this year. Maybe you don't get on the next one or the future one or whatever, but you need to audition because this should be something that you're pressing into to be a part of this space, because from an artist perspective, you are set up extremely well to be successful on stage in front of a room full of people that do not know you. And that is what we strive to do as curators here in Philly, with our open mic spaces, with our showcases. We want to help people grow as artists themselves. And I felt every hospitality thing that we extend to others, I felt that, I received that from you. Yeah. I received that from your team. And I was like, oh yeah, this is done well. I felt spiritually connected to what you guys are doing, in the sense of we carry a lot of the same heart.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that I have leaned into and tried to do for the last decade plus in Philly, you are carrying that for Trenton, but even larger than that regionally. So I just need you to hear that, it's a really special thing that you have going on, man. Thank
you, man. I appreciate that so much, bro. It's a lot. It's I would say for me, I think I told you this isn't anything that I wanted to do. It's kind of just God said, this is what you need to do. And I was like, okay, I surrendered to it. Like you said, surrendered life. So as I surrender to it and just give him my yes, I just see what he can do with obedience. It's kind of weird because I never like to take anything from this thing. I kind of just like to sit in the back and just look what God did for this thing. I never like to kind of put my hands on something like this, and take glory for it. But man, I appreciate your kind words, man. It means a lot. Just from a curator to a curator, man, you already know it's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's not easy at all. But if this is what God has called me to do, he's gonna make it look easy to the outside world, but they're not really gonna know that this thing is hard. Yep. So yeah. I
mean, you might lose your venue 4 hours before the doors open.
A lot can happen.
Yeah. It's been It's been an amazing thing to watch, man. I'm super proud of you. Yeah, there's a lot that I could say that I probably shouldn't say too much of, but I think Open Heart is potentially something you could do other places too, right?
I believe so.
You know, I think that it's rare to do that successfully. I think a lot of times when people try to go replicate a thing in a new space just off rip, like without the help from a local standpoint, it can become kind of difficult. Yeah. But I'm also like, man, I don't see a lot of overtly Christian poetry spaces being as successful as what you guys have been in too many spots. And you just never know. There might be a moment where somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, we want what you guys are doing in X, Y, or Z city.
Right.
And then you start to think in terms of regional, national. Yeah. In a way that you didn't expect whenever you started this thing in good old Trenton, New Jersey,
right,
you know?
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's definitely what you should do. You know, I think sometimes that can even be a moment where you lose focus on the main thing to try to do this other thing. But ask God,
absolutely.
Right? Like, let him speak to you the same way you let God speak to you to change it from a third space secular open mic into a Christian open mic. Now you've also made another big change because you did the showcase in January. Yeah. But you changed the whole model because you're not going back to the open mic model. You want to keep the showcase model. Right. The same way that you're doing that, like, you know, you'll figure this out.
Absolutely.
What the future is going to hold. If this is Trenton only, is this going to become a thing that you start in different places at different times? Who knows? Right. But let the Lord speak to you. The showcase thing moving forward, talk to me about that. Like, why did you feel like, you know, you want to keep with the model from the anniversary show?
Oh, man. I felt like, an open mic list. I think we've had 10 slots on an open mic list. We can't really go over 10 slots just because of the timing. We can, but it just, the open mic list didn't just seem feasible anymore simply for the growth, that we've seen. And the growth that we've seen on the 1 year anniversary, grace to God. I see that even becoming bigger than that. Right. So as God continues to grow this, an open mic list just didn't seem like it would be, feasible anymore, for hundreds of people to come, but only 10 people to make the list. And I think, you know, like how that can be, people don't make the list and they're just, people get beside themselves. And some people, don't make the list and they get a little upset because they travel from near or far and, you know, things like that. But I've also learned as a businessman that you can't please everybody. Yeah. It's just impossible. But I also want to give everybody a chance. And I think with these auditions, everyone will at least get a chance to be on stage, you know. And even so, we didn't do this for the 1 year anniversary, but moving forward, we will have a videographer recording auditions. If you do not get a yes, if you do not get a yes to perform for the next show at the audition, you still have photos and footage of your audition that you can use on your social media platforms. So you don't really get it. You don't really lose here. So I think I just tried to set it up where everyone can get a chance, but also there's a win-win for everybody. Yep. You may not make the stage for the showcase, but hey, look, you have a recording of your audition that you can use for your own personal use, you know? So I think it's a win for everybody.
It makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, especially because of the drive for so many people.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I was there in September and there were people that did not make the list that drove from New York to get there. Yeah. And you're like, oh, snap. Yeah. You know, people driving from Staten Island. You're like, oh, man, that's a brutal drive. Yeah. And they drove all the way to Trenton to perform. Yes. And they didn't get on the list. And I could see that being really hard, you know, but you also don't want to go open mic list first come first serve because what you're going to have is people camping out at noon in tents waiting to get on the list, and theoretically the people who can get to a space at noon on a Friday are the same people who can get there the next time.
Exactly. You'll see a repetitive
so you're going to see the repetitive lineup. So you want to go lottery style almost, right? But if you go lottery style, well then people who drove an hour 2 hours to come, you know, it makes sense where you guys have landed. And I think it's a beautiful decision for where you guys are at. and what you have going on moving forward, man. That you're building a lineup that'll be, diverse in talent, diverse in genre, diverse in expression, that will basically be a one-of-one event every time. So the January show will never be replicated.
Exactly.
And the March show will never be replicated. And the, June show will never be replicated. Like, however often you do these massive showcases, they're all going to stand on their own as kind of their own unique success.
Yes.
And they'll stand out, like, for you as the curator of, like, oh, that was the night blank performed, or that was the night God did this, or that was the night so-and-so was there. And you'll remember them kind of iconically.
When I see God, and I didn't really understand him putting it on my heart to do auditions for the rest of the year, but what I see, I don't know if you know this, but Open Art Poetry says a unique Christian showcase experience. The word unique pretty much means to be set apart. And I see he's trying to set apart this thing, make it look like what you're going to get here, you're probably not going to get anywhere else. So I see he's just separating this thing and just trying to bring his people here. And it's not, like I always say, it's not just for, like, to be entertained. Like, people receive breakthroughs. Like, people come there leaving better than what they came. So yes, we're putting on a showcase, but you're going to leave with much more just than a showcase. That's really what it is.
Yeah. Super good, man. I'm excited. I will be there. Anytime I'm in town and I see this thing happen, I'm going to be there. Showing some love, showing some support, and honestly pushing our crew of artists to audition and try to get, on the lineup. I think it's a worthwhile investment for them. Yes. I'm really excited about what the future holds. I don't know if we're gonna keep doing oracles or whatever, because you guys are out here.
I mean, you guys are doing so oracles is annually.
Yeah, that's what the goal is. I mean, the goal is to see how this first one goes, so we know our investment, resources wise,
right? And
we're spending that because we're paying everybody and all that stuff, paying all the artists, paying all the tech and everything that we possibly can, and then some people are volunteering, which is helpful. But we want to do this, like, from a sustainable standpoint, and see what the resources side is. This sustainable on its own,
right? Because
as a ministry, we have enough other events that we produce, and we have 100 other gigs we do collectively as a community a year, that we don't need to throw oracles, right?
Makes sense.
We felt like we were trying to fill a gap that in some ways we feel like you guys are filling, but, like, we're gonna try it out. If the first one gets towards break even, then we would do it potentially again in 2026. We picked kind of our time frame just in case, like, things like Poets in Autumn were to come back. That would be in the autumn. This would be in the spring.
That's good.
Kind of juxtapose that. Really just trying to, pick dates and moments in time that don't conflict with other stuff. So kind of plop down in a weekend that doesn't have a lot of other stuff happening. So that's kind of our heartbeat is this a value? And then our thinking was, for poets to have a thing that they could try to shoot for, to be like, I want to be great enough at my craft that oracles is a ask that I get.
That's good.
Or, if it turns into an audition type thing, that oracles is a thing that I could make it on. Similar to Rhetoric P4CM back in the day in LA.
Yeah, P4CM is great.
I think if Rhetoric still existed, we wouldn't be doing oracles. But in ways, because of the gap that is felt, that there isn't really a national platform for Christian poetry that's like anybody, like people flying in to be on. We said, should we fill that gap? So that's what we're attempting to do. Okay. Will we do it successfully? I don't know, Will.
I think you will.
But
I think it's going to be amazing.
And you're on it.
I am.
Which is going to be great. Or you were on it if we already did it. It's going to be a blast, man. Thank you so much for being on today's episode.
Thank you.
Well, I'm super excited for your future, and I can't wait to see what God does and, how Ripe can be an asset to it, how conversations can happen as you guys start thinking about, more regional stuff, national stuff as well. I think we just want to help in any way that we can. And if you don't need our help, you don't need our help. But we're here if you need us,
Thank you.
So it'll be great. Any other final thoughts from January 24th before we wrap up today's episode?
Nah, man. I think we covered everything. January 24th, 1 year anniversary was a show. I know I'm already thinking like super far ahead, but if the 1 year anniversary looked like that, I can only imagine what the 2 year anniversary is going to look like. So that's that. Absolutely, man. I was honored, and it was an honor to be a part of it as a poet myself. And yeah, can't wait. Can't wait for what's ahead. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you are here, please look up Open Heart Poetry. If you are regional, get a ticket to their next show whenever it is. Depending on when you listen to this episode, it might be in a week, it might be in a month. So make sure you guys check it out. Go to one of these events. They are amazing, and I think you will be impacted by it no matter who's on the lineup, no matter who gets selected. It's going to be an amazing time because God's hand is on this thing, and we would love to see you guys support it in that way. If you're here and you are a fan of Will already, you're already an attendee of this thing, Open Heart, you don't really know much about Ripe Creatives, we'd encourage you to jump on our website, ripecreatives.com. Check out our about page, our mission, vision, values, who's on our team, what events do we do, and even consider clicking on the give button to become a partner with what we do. 100% of the resources that we raise is what enables us to go do things and be a part of events like Open Heart, to throw our own events like Good Soils and Creatives Philly and Two Lines. Your resources fund what we do pretty much all the way. So we would love for you to consider supporting us and partnering with us. Lastly, just want to thank Top Mop Productions. Shout out to him. He is always here recording, editing, producing all of our episodes. Without him, none of this would be possible. So shout out to Top Mop. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode, January 24th, 2025, Open Heart Poetry 1 year anniversary show. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. You got something out of it. And until next time, y'all, stay right.
Boy, that's it. Yeah, I'm done with the games. I thought this was.
You can learn more about Ripe Creatives and support our ministry by visiting our website, ripecreatives.com. To never miss a future episode, you can join our community text line by texting Time is Ripe to 215-273-3540. Time is Ripe is produced, recorded, edited, and released by Top Mop Productions. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
My purpose. Know that I'm the best to do it when I'm living the service. Once you see light, you understand that sin is whack. Be aware, wolves plotting on the next attack. Armor of God, give me the word. I'm always strapped. My brother's able, never question if I got his back.